island nation of Sri Lanka is dead in the middle of its toughest economic crisis and on the verge of bankruptcy, leaving citizens helpless to deal with the state of emergency, which is inflicting long power cuts lasting 13 hours, skyrocketing prices of goods and services, curfews, and a steeply devalued currency. But what is the reason for this dreaded crisis? What is India doing to help the island nation? We bring you all you need to know about the Sri Lankan crisis. From debt traps to inflation, government mismanagement and ill-advised tax cuts, there are many things that contributed to the ongoing crisis. Number 1. Foreign debt. Sri Lanka is deep in debt, having to repay more than 3 times the amount it holds as foreign reserves. The acute shortage of foreign currency and the fast depreciation of the Sri Lankan rupee against the dollar is leaving the economy crumbling. Sri Lanka has foreign currency reserves of $2 billion, while the total debt repayment target is close to $7 billion for the year 2022 alone. As a country, Sri Lanka is heavily dependent on imports, including essentials like petrol, diesel, food, and medicines. The reduced foreign exchange reserves have negatively impacted the imports, leaving it struggling to pay for essential commodities. The external debt in Sri Lanka has been on a steep rise since 2005, from $11.3 billion in 2005 to $56.3 billion in 2020 during the COVID pandemic. Adding to the chaos, the Sri Lankan rupee depreciated by more than 50% against the US dollar this year alone, going from 200 rupees a dollar in Jan 2022 to almost 300 in current times. Economic debt trap. While China holds a mere 10% of Sri Lanka's total foreign debt, experts suggest that loans sanctioned by China had a small but crucial role to play in its downfall, suggesting that Sri Lanka fell for a Chinese debt trap, wherein China assisted the developing country to build large infrastructure projects with seemingly low returns. In case of inability to pay the debt, large sections of the infrastructure projects would be handed over to Chinese corporations. Hambantota Port is a fitting example of this scheme. This port was handed over to China Merchants Port Holdings, CM Port, on a 99-year lease by the Sri Lankan government as they couldn't pay back the funding capital debt to China. What political activists saw as an unfair deal left Chinese state-owned company CM Port with an overall stake of 70% and the Sri Lanka Ports Authority with a mere 30% stake of the port. Organic farming laws. In its aspiration to become the world's first 100% organic farming nation, the Rajapaksa government decided to ban all chemical fertilizers in 2021. This hit the country's farm sector and triggered a sharp decline in the critical rice crop. The ban on fertilizers resulted in crop failure, leading to massive protests by farmers against the government. Correcting its failed policy, the government had to announce compensation of $200 million for rice farmers who faced crop failure due to the ban. Tax reduction. While Sri Lanka has been dealing with a crisis for a couple of years, the current crisis was accelerated by deep tax cuts promised by Rajapaksa during the 2019 election campaign. The tax cuts were initiated just months before COVID-19 pandemic, which wiped out parts of the economy, creating major problems in the purchasing power of the Sri Lankan government. Tourism. The tourism industry contributes to 10% of the nation's GDP. While Sri Lanka was still recovering from the blow the industry faced due to the serial Easter bombing in 2019, in came the COVID-19 pandemic, which majorly affected the tourism industry and the money that came with it. Finally, how is India helping Sri Lanka in this crisis? India has come out to help its neighbour Sri Lanka by providing a line of credit of $1 billion to help in maintaining their food prices and fuel costs. The government has also signed off a $400 million credit swap facility with Sri Lanka to help shore up reserves. In addition, a $500 million line of credit for fuel purchases was signed in February, which proved critical as global oil prices soared after the Russia-Ukraine war. Meanwhile, the Sri Lankan government has also approached the IMF for a debt relief package and appointed a new financial and economic team for multilateral affairs and debt sustainability in the country.